Well, with the entrance of yet another Democrat into the bulging field of candidates trying to unseat President Trump in the 2020 presidential election, the question now seems to be what Democrats are not running for president. Here to illuminate us on the state of play in a race that's kicked off earlier than any presidential campaign in history is LibertyNation.com national correspondent Joe Schaefer. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Tim. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Now, arguably the most deranged of the Trump haters in the House of Representatives, the once obscure backbencher from California, Eric Swalwell, becomes the 18th candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination, riding the wave of his high-profile attacks on Trump over the last 2 years. And you got to admit, Joe, he probably is leading the race for the cherished distinction of who hates Trump the most. Yes?
Oh yeah, that's his tagline. That's what he's going for. I don't know if you saw his ad that he came out with announcing his candidacy. Sort of, it's on YouTube, where he just came out and used the word. Well, I won't use it on the air, BS, but he didn't say BS to talk about Trump. So he's already using that kind of language. He's the tough guy. He's the guy who wants to stand up to Trump. So again, he's another Democrat who takes his cue from Trump as opposed to having any unique ideas of his own, which, no surprise, that's what they're all like, aren't they?
Well, you can't say they're short of ideas, Joe. Of course, all of them are socialist ideas, but that's neither here nor there. Now, this week, Kirsten Gillibrand, who I think really has to be the emptiest of all the suits on the Democratic side, running to be commander-in-chief of U.S. Armed Forces, referred to tactile nuclear weapons instead of tactical. And all of the other candidates, except perhaps Joe Biden, who's got real problems of his own, don't exactly present as trustworthy on national security issues. Joe, who are the grown-ups in the Democrats' room?
I don't know. You have to tell me. That's sort of the argument for Joe Biden, isn't it? That, he's experienced and grizzled, and he knows his way around all these issues. But again, this is a party that wants to go young. They want generational change. So you're not going to find somebody who has all that down. And in that regard, for the primary, for winning the Democratic nomination, I don't think it's actually going to hurt these people that they don't have their chops on all this stuff. But at the same time, in a general election, that's the kind of stuff that comes back to haunt you. But to me, when you talk about national security and who's the adults, Tulsi Gabbard had an absolutely crucial interview with a liberal freelance journalist named Michael Tracy the other week. I think it was about a week ago. She's an announced presidential candidate in his Democratic field, and she came out and said that members of her own party are risking World War III with Russia just so they can score points attacking Trump. Why isn't the major media reporting this? That a Democratic presidential candidate basically called out the other people in her party
because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit their narrative, Joe. That's
absolutely
why.
shocking. So this is what I'm hoping. Tulsi Gabbard, I think she's close now to earning that minimum of supporters that you need to be in the debates. She's going to be in the debates. I just hope we have that moment on stage where she calls them out like that. And I want to see some of the reaction of these people. You talk about not being adults, the reckless talk against Trump. Threatening that's a national security threat right there when you're saber rattling with nuclear armed foreign nations just to score domestic political points against a political opponent. That is reckless and irresponsible.
Our guest is Joe Schaefer, national correspondent for LibertyNation.com. And Joe, it's remarkable. The top tier of Democratic presidential candidates, we're not talking about outliers, people who have no chance for the nomination. They've all endorsed the Green New Deal and reparations for the descendants of slaves and Medicare for all. And some of them believe in abolishing the Electoral College, packing the Supreme Court. Nancy Pelosi wants to lower the voting age to 16. Now, Joe, for most of our lives, Democrats ran away from even being called liberal. What's changed that they now openly embrace socialism?
Well, it's inside their own party. The party's taken a hard turn to the left. You could argue that this started with Obama. You could say it goes back further than that. Demographic change certainly has something to do with that. They think these immigrants coming in are all future Democratic voters, but they're also not traditional Democrats, going back 40, 50, whatever years. Many of them come from countries that, quite frankly, embrace socialism. So they're new in our country, but socialism doesn't scare them, and they're the growing Democratic voter base. So in that regard, it's not surprising. These are candidates. They're all going to have to run to the left to capture this Democratic nomination. And then I want to see the pivot once they get that. Whoever gets that nomination, been talking about socialism basically for 6, 7, however many months it's going to be, and then what happens when you get into the general election? The 180-degree turn, if it's going to be a 180-degree turn, should be interesting to observe.
Not that Trump is going to point out all the socialist things they said during the primary campaign.
He would never do that.
No, of course not. That's not his style, Joe. Do you think it was the success of Bernie Sanders in inciting this sort of grassroots revolution that was kind of a mirror image to Trump in 2016? The incredible wave of small individual donations that added up to tens of millions of dollars for Bernie Sanders. Do you think that was what convinced all these candidates that, socialism is now something that they not only could not run away from, but actually embrace because of Bernie?
Yes, I think this comes from an absence of ideas of their own. There's an idea of vacuum in the Democratic Party, and it was filled with Bernie being the natural, at the time, alternative to Hillary Clinton. And so he was the only one challenging, establishment, tired, old, corrupt Hillary Clinton's Democratic Party, which everybody wanted to see go away, including most Democrats. So it made his brand of socialism look like more of a true alternative than I think it is. And so you have these people who really don't have any ideas of their own, and this made a mark on the party in 2016. So they think that they have to go in this direction. And it's amazing how they all parrot this new line. I mean, none of them is going to really come out against the Green New Deal, even if some of them think it's financially crazy. They're all saying the same things. I didn't notice it completely, but did a single one of them say it's crazy to allow 60-year-olds to vote?
No,
I didn't hear a single one of them say that.
No.
It's crazy. They are afraid to go against this pronounced democratic orthodoxy, and the people pushing this pronounced democratic orthodoxy are these urbanite blue center Bernie supporters. So in that regard, it's kind of crazy. Bernie Sanders, in a big way, his people are pushing the agenda of this party, and the presidential candidates are all just falling in line.
Well, let's talk about that from another angle, and that would be the AOC effect, the spell that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has seemed to cast over the Democratic Party, where facts are just incidental to the cherished narrative that the time has come for true democratic socialism in this country. Is anyone in this party prepared to stand up to this 29-year-old former bartender?
Absolutely not. No chance. They're scared of her, and I think again it's a credit to Ocasio-Cortez. Not that I want to credit her having great ideas, but she stands for something. Yes, she's a creature of this organization, Justice Democrats. But, again, I don't think that that's a big mark against her. This group, Justice Democrats, they stand for something. It's a radical progressive agenda, but they do have their agenda, and they are going and trying to find young voices for this agenda. And you would think it wouldn't be too hard for more veteran, established, sensible Democrat politicians to handle a 29-year-old
Yeah. Yeah.
newcomer,
Yeah.
but they absolutely have not been able to handle her. And what does that say about them?
I
Again,
agree. Yeah, I
go
agree.
ahead. What do you think that says, Tim?
Well, I think I'll go back to what you were saying about AOC. You have to give her credit for becoming almost like the Trump of the far left, in the sense that she's become a magnet for attention from both her own party and from conservatives who attack her all the time. She's become a lightning rod and done it at 29 years old. You have to admire her just from a, for lack of a better term, public relations standpoint. I mean, she has become the thing in the Democratic Party. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Thank you, Tim.
Joe Schaefer, national correspondent for LibertyNation.com. Quick break, and then we're back to discuss the Democrats' latest strategy for releasing Trump's tax returns.